Friends, I welcome you to my channel. Before listening to this story, I will ask you to like and subscribe. It is not difficult for you, but it is pleasant for me. And we're starting. I blame myself for a lot of what happened. It may not have been my fault, but the basis for the end of the marriage was created by my past. When I met Joan, I knew she had limited experience with men. She was by no means a virgin, but, including me, she could count her lovers on the fingers of the right hand of a bad labor teacher. And me, you'd have to take off both shoes and add a whole yard full of pigs to it. To be honest, that was part of what attracted me to her. Joan was pretty, with a slender body, beautiful dark eyes, and black cropped hair, but by no means stunning. However, there was a kind of sweet seriousness about her, the type that is sometimes erased by worldly fuss. When we met, right after graduating from college, I was looking for someone like her, someone who rejects the lifestyle that I lead. It's not that I'm ashamed of that time. In high school, I considered myself a player, but when I went to college, I realized that at best I was playing in the minor leagues. My freshman girlfriend, Rachel, opened up a whole new world to me. When we decided that it was better for us to stay as friends with substantial privileges, we became each other's wingmen, and as a result, each of us had an incredible amount of adventures. When college ended, I thought things might change. It hasn't changed. The green-eyed blonde bombshell wanted to keep having fun, and I decided it was time to settle down. In fact, she was the one who introduced me to Joan, her friend from home. If Rachel and I didn't have the best academic results due to extracurricular activities, then Joan was the complete opposite. I know that Joan sometimes worried that she was my second choice, that if I could, I would be with Rachel. This, of course, is not true. They are different. And although I love my best friend and I have wonderful memories of our romantic love when we were freshmen, I am deeply in love with Joan. She was never able to completely get rid of her jealousy, but over time her anxiety decreased. Rachel and Joan were casual friends in their hometown, but thanks to me they became very close. This eased any jealousy after Rachel got rid of the wild child phase. I'd be lying if I said I didn't feel some excitement helping my girlfriend, then my fiancée, then my wife develop their beauty. Did I shape it according to my tastes? Yes, a little bit. But she seemed to like this aspect of our relationship, and when she wanted to try something that didn't always interest me, I still willingly agreed. When we were in bed, Joan liked to discuss our lives before we became a couple. It was very exciting for her. She had relatively few stories, but she clung to mine. She asked me to tell her about the women I used to be with, about what we did together, about all this. After that, she chose from my stories what she would like to try, and we included it in the rotation. I loved Joan with all my heart. She was sweet and loving, a great wife and friend for most of our marriage. She had a quirky sense of humor and a deep, often excessive, analytical mind. All the time she spent in college actually paid off, both in terms of her intelligence and in terms of her career. She is a quantitative analyst, one of those financial analysts who rely on quantitative analysis and programming skills to figure out which stocks to buy and sell, and is very, very good at it. Joan earned a lot of money for her bosses, which meant that she naturally earned more than me. Unfortunately, an overly analytical mind led to the fact that sometimes she applied intellectual analysis to the wrong things. I still had the same list of firm no's that I had in college, the boundaries that I had while in a relationship. I was ready to do almost anything, as long as it was just me and her. I didn't want any other lovers for any of us. We talked about this before the wedding, and then she completely agreed. But after 5 years of living together and 3 years of marriage, one of them began to resist. I just don't understand what's going on, Paul. You've done this before, in college. I sighed. I am very tired of this discussion. This is the third time in a few months that we've been through this. Yes, and as I always emphasize, it was when I was single. My wife rolled her eyes and made air quotes with her fingers. Single. Your relationship with Rachel was anything but a bachelor. It didn't hurt for you to be together and with 4 different people at the same time, and you sent her out of the bar accompanied by a couple dozen more. It's true. Our friend was featured in a number of my stories from that time, and I liked these episodes. Something like that? But there's a reason why she and I stopped dating after freshman year, and why I married you. We've talked about this before. We've talked many times. My answers haven't changed, so why do you keep asking the same questions? She waved her arms in the air, becoming more animated. Because I didn't do anything like that. You guys have been talking about the great adventures you've had, and it's damn hot. I feel like I've missed everything. I sighed. Honey, I understand. Truth. But there are a lot of things which wasn't so much fun either. I'm not talking about the shit that was going on because it was really shitty. For example, when Rachel almost blew her mind when I picked up a boyfriend. Or when we broke someone's heart because we didn't know they were more serious than us. Sometimes it was a lot of fun, but what we have is much better. With a grunt, she said, Well, I don't know. I understand, Joan, but fantasies? I sighed. Sometimes it's better that they remain just fantasies. I sympathized with her. Actually, I sympathized. But she didn't understand what she was asking. If you share someone you love and are devoted to, then it changes the situation. That's why Rachel and I broke up. Joan knew that, but she didn't seem to understand. She turned away from me. What if that's not enough anymore? The hairs on my neck prickled. This is something new. What does this mean? What if I want to go and... She shook her head. Then her dark eyes stared at me intently. No, not what if. I want to go and have some adventures of my own. My eyes bulged. What? No, not just no, but damn it, no. Her pretty face turned into a grin. This was also something new, and I didn't like it at all. Oh, do you think that since we're married, I belong to you? That you can dictate what to do with my body? No, but we're married. We made a vow. Give up on everyone. Do you remember him? I love you, and I thought you loved me too. Her expression softened. I really love you, Paul, and very much. I want to spend my whole life with you, and I don't blame you for all the things you did in college. But it sucks that I can't do the same thing just because of some piece of paper. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Is that all for you? Our marriage, just a piece of paper? No, it's simple. Look, yes, we made vows. The vows that they're like a contract between us. And if one of us is unhappy with the terms, we can change this contract until we are satisfied. I couldn't believe this shit. So you want to rewrite our vows? Give up on everyone, except how will Joan go and find herself some stranger? I snorted. No shit, I would never... She shook her head irritably. Look, I've been thinking about this a lot. I need to do this, Paul, but I don't want to ruin our marriage. Have you thought about this a lot? Why? My blood turned cold and my voice followed. Who? It's not like that, Paul. I didn't cheat on you. I didn't even really communicate with anyone, but I know that men are looking at me. What? That I can succeed for myself if I try. There is someone to whom... She looked away. Who will I go to when I get permission from you? Well, that when is the same as when hell freezes over, Joan. I will never be able to accept this. I chuckled. And succeed for yourself? What does it mean to me then? Is it just a limited good thing? Joan gasped. No, not at all. I love you and you're so wonderful, Paul. But I need these experiences. The ones you had. You always told me that it's not so much about better as different. I want to experience this other. To hell with everything. No, I'm not going to do that. I'm done talking about this. If you do it yourself, it's over between us. We may have already finished. I got up to leave. Paul, wait, please, She reached into her purse and pulled out a folded piece of paper. I want to do this, baby, but I want everything to be honest. She raised her hand to stop me with a pleading expression on her face. Please listen to me. It might be good for us. She put the paper on our kitchen table and opened it. Contract? She drew up a fucking contract. In all seriousness, she actually wants to change our fucking wedding vows. I just stared in shock when she spoke again. I don't want everything to be asymmetrical, Paul. I want each of us to be able to have fun. And I still want there to be rules like in our oath. I just want to expand them. She pushed the paper towards me. It was complete nonsense. A bunch of rules like being careful not to bring a friend home, partnering only with those friends who weren't our real friends or colleagues, using condoms, taking a shower before returning home, a whole stupid checklist that could be titled, How to Have an Affair While Pretending That You Don't Have an Affair. There was a place for my signature and a date at the bottom. She has already signed up and set the date 3 days before today. In particular, I laughed at one point, saying with a grin, disrespectful attitude towards the spouse is not allowed. It's too late, Joan. All this is already disrespectful. She said softly, I don't want anyone to think that a friend is talking badly about one of us. Friend. Yes, because when I think about my friends, I am... She exploded. Yes, my friend Paul. Nothing more, not even such friends. Those damn quotes again. What were you and Rachel like? I'm not going to replace you, I just want to have fun, just like you. Now I was shaking with rage. Then you shouldn't have gotten married. You shouldn't have sworn allegiance. She jumped up. Our vows are completely subjective. No wonder not all couples pronounce the same vows. Some add or remove obey. Some write their own. People do what suits them. We can choose the ones we want, and we can change them later if they don't fit. That's enough. I've had enough. They're working like hell, Joan, for me at least. If they don't work for you, I shook my head. Then just get out. I'll give you a divorce if that's what you want, but I won't do it. She banged on the table. That's not what I want. Joan stood up, burning with anger. I'm going to have some fun, Paul. Sign the damn amendments, or at least talk to me about how we can change them to make it convenient for you. You can go and have fun with, I don't want to. Her mood changed in the blink of an eye. Anger was replaced by something that made me even more alarmed. She put on her face of a quantitative analyst, saying that she had calculated the numbers and everything should be exactly like that, and said coldly, well, I want to and I'm going to. I'm going to ask someone out on a date. I'm going to go out and have some fun and you should too. But first I want to agree on the rules. Let's just walk through them, okay? I love you and I want this adventure to happen to you. The damned arrogance of this woman. Without saying another word, I rushed out of the house. She was calling for me, but she might as well have been talking to a wall. I got into the car and drove off. I needed to talk to someone and I knew exactly who. I got the laugh I needed, but Rachel didn't laugh with me. I'm serious, Paul. I can't believe she did this shit. We were sitting at the bar of our favorite beer joint since college, each sipping a beer. It was so disappointing, so out of character for the woman I thought I knew. I just don't know what to do. I mean, she's obviously planning to do it. Part of me says, fuck it, let's just get divorced. The other one objects. It seems like she's right, Rachel interrupted. No, this is nonsense. Yeah, we had a hell of a time back then, but we still had a bright line that we didn't go beyond. That's why we didn't succeed, because... She looked away, trying to avoid my face and the echo of the painful memory etched on it. Because we both know there's a difference. Having a friend you love and sharing it with someone else is one thing. Sharing a girlfriend or spouse is another thing. Some things. She shook her head and looked at me. Stupid fucking brainiac, Joan. Some things can't just be experienced. You can't tell your heart that they don't matter. I know that there are people for whom this is suitable, someone who can have an open marriage or swing or whatever. She laughed. Then I laughed too. But you and I both know it won't work for you. It didn't work for me either, and I don't think it's going to work for her when you start using someone else. I giggled. Yes, I don't think she'll like it. I bowed my head in displeasure. I don't like it either. I don't want to make love to anyone else. You're right, Rach. I can't turn on and off like that. Not with my wife. It's simple. It's a different feeling. What's the point of making vows if you don't want to keep them? If she has a bed with someone else, I think that's the end of it. We'll finish it. Rachel patted me on the shoulder. She hasn't done it yet. You know she loves you and she can see how upset you are. Let everything calm down today. I'll call her during the day tomorrow. You can talk to her about it after work when you both have time to think about it. She finished her beer. Come on, man. Let's go play billiards and try to take our mind off this shit. She kicked my ass, as always. The house was dark. Joan had already gone to bed. I was standing in the living room trying to decide where I was going to sleep that night. We never fought so much that I didn't want to sleep next to her. I still wanted it, even though I was mad at her. But I also didn't want her to think that I had accepted her idiotic corrections. I sighed and went to my bedroom, trying to be quiet while brushing my teeth and getting ready for bed, and then slipped into bed next to my wife. She was asleep, but I fell in behind her and hugged her. I didn't want this to be the end of us, but if I had to, I wanted to spend at least one more night hugging her in my sleep. In the morning, she left before I woke up. I left my contract, amendments, whatever you want to call it, on the table with a note. I love you with all my heart. Please sign it and let's get through this so we can have a new adventure together. Initially, I had an instinctive urge to chew it off, and with it, perhaps the whole damn house. Instead, I took a picture of it and sent it to Rachel so that she would have more than just my vague recollection of what was written there. The more I looked at him, the more I understood what my wife was trying to achieve, and the more angry I became. A plan began to form in my head. If she doesn't want to listen to reason, well, then I'll show her that you can't apply intelligent analysis to some things. The job was like a job. I couldn't concentrate. I was hoping that Rachel would be able to talk to Joan today and make her come to her senses. If not, I ran through several scenarios in my head of what I would do if the worst happened. They ranged from trying to find a way to come to terms with it, to burning everything to the ground and covering the ground with salt. I was almost sure that everything would be closer to the latter option, but at the moment I was working with hypotheses. I needed to talk to her and see if she was awake. I snuck out early and went to the gym to have something to focus on. A little over an hour later, I was sweaty and tired. Running plus weights helped me get distracted at the moment, but all they were was a distraction. And when I finished my warm-up, any peace I could temporarily find in the exercises was dispelled by a message from Rachel. I tried. Sorry, she doesn't want to listen. If you want to chat after talking to her, right. I took a shower at the gym. Even that annoyed me. I remembered that there was an item on her stupid little checklist about washing before returning home, and I thought that she was taking a shower after a workout of a completely different kind. My stomach cramped. When I walked in the door, Joan was already there, sitting at the kitchen table with dinner prepared for us. She cooked well, but rarely made an effort. Usually we just ordered food at home. I didn't know why she was so upset. Another tactic to get me to agree? An apology for doing that? Or an apology for something else, for something I can't forgive? Her smile seemed sincere and relaxed. I'm glad you're home. Come on, baby, let's eat. It's delicious and spicy. We ate in silence. This was not uncommon. We are both gourmets and we like to enjoy our food. It was usually the contented silence of two people enjoying food and each other's company, comfortable enough for each other not to fill the air with unnecessary words. But this was not the case. I think she was trying to show me that we were still us, that her little adjustments wouldn't change anything. But she did the exact opposite, and as the tension in the room grew, she finally realized it. Joan broke the silence. I talked to Rachel today. I know. I put the cutlery on both sides of the plate. Dinner was ruined anyway. She nodded silently. Then you probably also know that she hasn't changed my mind. I'm not mad that you talked to her, but I'm a little offended that you tried to drag her into all this. This should be just between us. It's a good thing I stopped eating, otherwise my snorting would have splattered spaghetti sauce all over the tablecloth. Yes, just you, me, and the guys you plan to use. Her disappointment was obvious. You know what I mean? These people, whoever we decide to be with, the amendments clearly state that it should not be those whom we already know. I wanted us to be careful, but we couldn't do it if... Gee, I'm damn sorry if I made you feel uncomfortable. How thoughtlessly I acted. I was supposed to be just a cute little doll, right? Joan's eye twitched. If that's what you want. I'm not forcing you. I've made it clear that I want you to go out and have fun. But if you are, did you think that would convince me? Are you insulting me? Are you trying to cut me off from my best friend? It's a good thing you're not in sales, honey. You suck at this. She growled. Okay, how about this negotiation tactic? I've set myself a date on Saturday night. If you haven't signed the amendments by then, I'll consider myself entitled to do whatever I want with it, including bringing it here. I don't want to hurt you, Paul, but you're damn stubborn and greedy about this, and I've had enough of your hypocritical shit. I got up slowly. You've had enough. From you, enough. You're a fucking fool. I threw my wine glass at the wall. She barely flinched when it crashed. You just told me that you're going on a date with some other guy in 3 days. And if I don't agree, are you going to... what? Will you bring him home and use him in our bed? Are you trying to make me watch? I don't want to do any of this, but I will do it if you don't sign the amendments or come up with changes that I can live with. I shook my head. That you can live with, I looked at her. No, you know what? I don't even recognize you anymore. There's no point in talking about it. I grabbed my keys and headed to my car, then texted Rachel. When I arrived, she was already sitting at the bar with a beer for me. I had a feeling that we would come back here. She sighed. I'm sorry. I tried, but, Paul, it's very bad. It's Doug and Lisa over and over again. Doug was one of our running buddies. He wasn't as close to Rachel or me as she and I were, but he had the same attitude to hedonism as we did, and where the boundaries run. In his senior year, he fell in love with a cute junior named Lisa and decided to become the first runner to drop out of our little marathon. Unfortunately, Lisa changed after they were together for a while. She has changed, I realized now, as Joan has changed. As a result, she slept behind Doug's back and broke his heart. He had never been able to find out why, except that she felt she needed to experience what he did. Rachel nodded. I've had a lot of time to think about it, and I'm sorry. I think I'm at least partly to blame for both Joan and Lisa. She took a sip of her beer. I was talking about our fun times. I know you are too, but it's a different thing when a guy tells his story to a girl and when a girl does it. It's hard to fit yourself into history if you don't have a similar experience outside of it, you know? Something like that? The problem is that it's like, do you know how they say not to pay too much attention to what people show on Instagram? Not judging by what you see there? I nodded. Yes. Don't compare your life with their videos. Yeah. Rachel put down her beer and absently began to peel off the label. I did it with Joan. With Lisa, probably too. I didn't show them anything except the video. For example, when you talk to Joan in bed about what you've been doing, what are you talking about? About fun things, right? About what really turned you on, or what you thought would turn her on. I nodded, realizing what she was getting at. She continued, You don't talk about boring experiences. You don't talk about those who were decent but not great, or those who were slightly disappointed. You can tell me about the bad ones, but even they mostly turn out to be either funny or safe, because you've been through them, right? I chuckled. And if she thinks it was all fun and games, does that justify it? I mean, even if it really was, it doesn't fucking justify anything. Her voice was filled with regret. No, but it might make her think it's worth the risk. We sat in silence for a while and drank. She's already set a date, on Saturday. Rachel put her hand on my shoulder. Oh shit, Paul, I'm so sorry. My hand went to her hand and my eyes clouded. Yes, yeah, me too. I can't stay with her. Even if she came to her senses and canceled all this, I couldn't do it. That she decided that it was possible to go so far. It's so disrespectful. To me, to our vows, to all this. I can't stay. We're getting divorced. I'll call my lawyer first thing tomorrow. Her face fell. God, I wish I'd never introduced you. Sorry, I'm really sorry. I had no idea she was capable of such a thing. I told her. God, I told her earlier when we were talking that she would lose you no matter how it happened. You either divorce her or you do what she wants, and eventually someone else will take you away. I can't believe that such a smart woman could be so dumb. I took another sip. That's because she's so smart, you know that, right? She raised an eyebrow. I guarantee that she approached this as she would any other risk analysis. She should have a spreadsheet on her laptop into which she has entered all the variables she could think of, and her estimates. How easy she thinks it will be to find a guy, how much fun she thinks it will be, what adjustments and how much it will annoy me, and then decided how she would approach the issue based on that. Rachel sighed. That's just like her. Yes, it's a pity that all her grades suck. Garbage at the entrance is always garbage at the exit, right? But she's going to go ahead because she's sure I'll give in, and when I don't give in, I'm sure she'll try to console herself with the fact that the result will be within the margin of error or some other shit. My mug was empty, so I signaled to the bartender. Do you need a place to stay for the night? Everything was so fucked up. My marriage was effectively over. I was going to divorce Joan, and probably ruin your life for the next few years. But, no, I appreciate it, but I'm going to see it through. I'll have to. It's over between us. But I need to teach her a lesson. And for that, well, she doesn't have to know that it's over between us. I've never hidden anything from Joan before. Maybe if I had, we wouldn't be here. Revenge? Really? That's not like you, Paul. I could only shrug my shoulders. Yes, but it's not like Joan either. And this... Okay, there will be an element of revenge in this. I won't lie. I'm angry, and I'm going to hurt her. But I meant exactly what I said. She needs to be taught a lesson. A few lessons, actually. A kind of last gift from me to her, as well as my revenge on her. She leaned forward with her hands on the bar, trying to meet my gaze. Well, now I'm intrigued. I laughed out loud. I was hoping you'd be intrigued. But, look, what I've planned, if you get involved, she won't forgive you for anything. Well, then it's perfect, because I'll never forgive her for doing this to you. She put her hand on my back and stroked me, a display of camaraderie on the part of a loyal friend. She just made it clear to me that I wasn't alone. The little things really matter the most. Now tell me what we're going to do. I told her everything. She was alternately amused, surprised, and looking forward to the beginning. After sobering up a little, I went home and again faced the decision of the previous night, to sleep next to my wife or alone. I looked longingly at the stairs leading to our bedroom. There were so many happy memories there, but now that's all they were. Hanging my head, I headed for the guest bedroom on the ground floor. Joan was gone again in the morning. I cried, just a little bit, about what she put us through. I cried even more because of what I had to put her through. I couldn't come back after last night. There will be no return for her after tonight. I wrote to my wife, think a little more. I have some changes that I think you can agree to. Shall we meet at home at 6 o'clock for dinner and discussion? Love you. It was painful for me to write those last 2 words, even if they were true at the moment. She answered almost instantly, thanks, I love you, see you tonight. I called work saying I was sick. I wanted to give myself some time to mentally prepare and put the house in order. Then he wrote to Rachel, let's get started, I'll see you at 4. Our house had an open floor plan. From the living room, it was easy to get into the kitchen, dining room, and hallway. I moved the furniture a little, adjusted the lighting, everything that was necessary for today's gift. Rachel arrived at 4 o'clock and we discussed all the details of the plan. Then we had a quick snack and a few drinks. We'll need energy and strong nerves. When my wife opened the door, her usual greeting ended with, Paul, and then a shout. I grunted, hey, sweet, it's just a second. My wife was looking at us, trying to figure out what was going on. Oh, Jojo, thank you. Ooh, for giving me another one. A try. It was incredibly hard not to laugh when Rachel said that. Joan angrily strode forward into the living room, but it was too late. I love you, Rach! Joan stopped her progress, paralyzed by the scream of the banshee that her husband had inseminated. Tears were streaming down Joan's beautiful, limp face. Her worst nightmares, all in one horrible picture. Her husband telling another woman, her best friend, that he loves her. The best friend reciprocates. They're making love in front of her, in front of his wife. Welcome home, Joan. Do you want to talk about these amendments now? I think you have an idea how I would like to change them. Joan sank helplessly into the chair next to her and began to sob. It broke my heart, but that wasn't enough. I bent over Rachel, who was lying down, and kissed her shoulder, without taking my eyes off Joan. A gentle display of affection and connection that had been reserved for her, and only for her for half a decade. Why don't you thank my wife for opening up our marriage? Rachel's grin belonged to a reed cat. Of course, my love. I helped her to her feet. Her face turned to mine, but her eyes did not leave Joan's as she kissed me. Not a deep, passionate kiss. Not the kind she would give to someone she had just made love to. It was a kiss between 2 people who were so close that passion was implied. He was only hinting at what they would share later. A lover's kiss. My tigress slid towards her prey. Thank you very much, Jojo. I would never have been able to be with Paul again if you had just kept your vow. I would never have been able to feel it. A slight tremor caused her assets to sway slightly, highlighting the differences between her body and Joan's. It's so delicious. You're missing everything. A thoughtful expression flashed across her face. Well, of course you won't be bored for long. What? My wife's eyes, wide with confusion and fear, darted to her. Rachel bent at the waist, bringing her face close to Joan's. Turning her neck closer to Joan, she asked, Do you like my perfume? I hope so. Your pillows will smell of them, each and every one. Night. She kissed my wife on the cheek, and the little scared woman I was in love with shuddered. Rachel straightened up and patted Joan's head. Everything will be great. I'm so glad to share it with you. Rachel was supposed to own me. She was marking her territory, and Joan didn't miss it at all. What a waste. Well, there's a lot more where it came from. Joan was clearly, thoroughly broken. That's enough. There's no reason to continue. Rachel looked at me. I just shook my head slightly and she nodded almost imperceptibly. Oh, I'd like to stay for dinner. But I have an early day tomorrow, and I know that if I stay, Paul will just keep me up all night. You won't mind that, will you, Jojo? I mean, you have a date on Saturday, so you don't have to complain. She came up to me, wrapped her arms around my neck and kissed me again, and then whispered, Call me later. Joan stared into space in silence, shocked, while Rachel and I dressed. When the door slammed behind our friend, I said softly, Now you understand. It's not something you can just rationalize. I couldn't live with you cheating on me no matter how you set it up, just like you can't live with what I've done. The woman whose heart I once hoped never to break nodded dumbly. I sat down on the sofa opposite her chair. not close enough to touch. We'll never be close again in any important way. My voice was low with sadness, resigned. The last gift for my wife is to tell her the truth with tenderness instead of anger. Wedding vows are subjective. They matter precisely because they are subjective. This is something that we only give to a loved one, and they say, "You will get it from me and from no one else. I will be this for you and for no one else." My vision is blurred because of the tears. You can't just change them because you want something new. These are not contracts that can be amended. These are vows that must be kept. The ring slipped off my finger so easily. I would love you for the rest of our lives. I would have kept all my vows. I would be yours and no one else's, better or worse, richer or poorer, in sickness and in health. But you just couldn't leave everyone else. The symbol of our marriage fell on the glass coffee table, and its sound became a bell ringing, announcing the end of our love. I left our house to the sound of Joan's plaintive sobs. My things had already been packed and were in the car. While driving, I texted Rachel, "Everything is ready. We'll talk tomorrow." She offered me to stay with her, but I couldn't. That would be too much. I needed to take my mind off everything. Joan was served at home. There was no reason to embarrass her any more than I had already done. I hadn't told anyone but Rachel why we were actually getting divorced, and I assumed Joan was too. The application was filed due to irreconcilable differences, and it was close enough to the truth. She didn't argue with me about that or the terms. I've been fair to both of us. It was as amicable as possible. Over the next few weeks, Rachel and I were friendly, but that was all. She was my best friend, and that hasn't changed. But the way we communicated, the casual touching, shoulder pats, hugs, mostly stopped. Memories of what we were like as students and what we were like on the last evening at my house were woven into them again. We both needed to figure out what it all meant, and I couldn't do that while I was going through the end of my marriage. A couple of months after that night, we were sitting in a bar together. We had been there more recently than in the previous 5 years combined. It was a kind of neutral territory. It wasn't that we didn't trust ourselves when we were alone in her or my apartment, but that I wasn't ready to explore the new and unexplored territory of our relationship yet. I wasn't sure what their shape would be now that the main constraints were gone, and I couldn't bear the thought that I could lose her too if we wanted different things. "I'm going to go." When I got off the stool, a small, almost shy smile appeared on her face. "I would like you to stay." She had a long day. We talked about some of the problems she had at work, but I thought we had her head in order. "Of course. Is there something else you wanted to talk about?" She laughed softly. "Talk is not the verb I would like, but we can start with that." She looked at me with that disarming smile that I fell in love with many years ago. The one who later convinced me that we should try something that I was sure wasn't worth trying. The one who couldn't convince either of us that everything was fine between us. Rach. I knew what she wanted, at least for the next few hours. I wanted that too. 2 months have passed, and being with her has awakened dormant memories that part of me desperately wanted to relive. But I couldn't become a part of what we were before I married Joan. She raised her hand. "Please, Paul, just listen to me." I nodded. If the reason for your reluctance is that you're still suffering too much because of Joan, I understand. I'm giving up on this right now. Is that true?" A slight shake of my head caused her to sigh with relief. "Okay, I'm going to go to the trick and assume that it's not because you don't want to use me." I snorted. It's a pretty sturdy limb. "No, it's because..." I sighed. "What we had after the date was great, but it's not what I want anymore. I'm not saying that I didn't feel close to you then, but that's not it. It's not the same thing. And I need to know that if we're going to be together, that's what we're both striving for, a kind of commitment, such as we had, the ones we had before we messed up when we were dating." Rachel looked down at her bottle, her face haggard and sad. "I ruined everything." "No, Rach, it takes 2 to tango." She snapped back. "Yeah, but I'm the one who caused this fucking dance, and we both know it. I was so sure that we could bring another couple, switch, and everything would be fine. It's grown up, right?" She shook her head sadly. "I was so sure then that I knew everything. I was absolutely sure that we could both handle it. But then I couldn't. I couldn't either. Any buzz I had left from the beer was washed away by the painful memory of how we had changed. Yes, but at least you tried." He tried to control himself for me. For us. I freaked out and left. "I will always love you, but we must remain just friends." Broke your heart. I broke mine. And I'm still, I can't stay away. But I hid it behind the fact that we're just friends. She looked at me. Joan is right. She knew. I knew that we weren't just friends after we stopped dating, that we were just pretending to keep doing what we were doing without hurting each other. I wish God would give me enough strength to stop. I wish I could stop pretending to be some kind of fucking sophisticated when we graduated from college, so that I would do whatever it takes to admit what I really want. Because now we are friends again, who can become friends with privileges, and I do not know how to get us back to where we were before. And I want it, Paul. I want it so badly. So, I kissed her. It wasn't a conscious choice, nor was it a consequence of the beer. That's because everything is open now. We both know that we mourned our love, even when we pretended that it was replaced only by friendship. But we mourned for something that only slept, not died. It was the kiss we shared the night we put on the show for Joan. The lover's kiss. The one we played. No, the method worked because it was triggered by something that we both still felt. She broke the kiss first, but only to say, "My apartment is closer." On the way to her apartment, we were delighted, but with a touch of painful anxiety. None of us knew what it would lead to, whether it would be a terrible mistake or the beginning of something wonderful. But we needed to know if it would destroy us or complement us. One of two things. We didn't even get in the door before we started taking off our clothes. I know I tore off a button on her blouse, and it wasn't any softer with my clothes. We didn't get to her bed. When they were both shirtless, I pushed her onto the couch. She fell back on him and spread her legs wide. I stepped between them, lifted her skirt, and almost tore off her panties. Their fabric was soaked with her juices. Those bright green eyes were filled with ecstatic anticipation. She knew how much I enjoyed this role, and my enjoyment meant that I had put in a lot of effort to succeed. On another night, I could tease her, work my way up her thighs, gently kissing the bump. None of this happened today. Did I want to taste my girlfriend for the first time in half a decade? Rachel's musky scent became my world as I plunged my face into her beautiful clipped slit. I desperately wanted to taste her, and she desperately wanted to be tasted. Her fingers tangled in my hair as I plunged my tongue between her pouting labia and deep inside her. The soft sighs and excited gasps of my beloved were the music that angels make. I wrapped my arms around her ass, holding her in place, and even if she wanted to break free, she couldn't. I wasn't going to let her leave me again. I was feasting on this juicy blonde goddess, and her sweet juices were dripping from my chin. Oh shit, Paul. When my tongue began to caress her clitoris, I felt that she began to tremble. I redoubled my efforts, and they were not left without reward. Her moans reached a crescendo and then abruptly ended, a strangled sigh mirroring the sudden paralysis of her body. For a moment she turned into an alabaster statue, a work of art, and then came to life again, moaning when her need was satisfied. I giggled, the vibration made her jump, and continued, "Please, no, But we both knew I wouldn't stop. I liked this game, and so did both of us. How many times can I turn her on before she passes out? That night we easily broke our record. I carried her to bed and held her close while she came to her senses. We kissed tenderly, resuming a loving relationship that ended when we were still children. There were tears in her eyes, gratitude and regret mixed on her face. Her voice was a little higher than a whisper. And why did I refuse it? I kissed her again and stroked her hair. Because I wasn't persistent enough to fight for you back then, to fight for us. And I wasn't a good enough friend to see how unhappy you were afterwards when you kept insisting that you wanted to stay playing on the field. I moved over to her, kneeling between her legs. But now I see it, and I want us. Tell me what you want. She bit her lip and moaned, "You." I pressed a little and she hissed, "Hush, you're mine." She nodded quickly again. "Yours, only yours. Always, your." She whispered, uttering an obscene song for the man to whom she had given her body. "You, I love you, mine." Her words became almost guttural sounds as the pace of our movements accelerated as she pulled me to her and wrapped her legs around me. "Mine, my love, I missed it, I need you." Gritting my teeth, I groaned. "Damn it, I love you, Rach. Always, I always will. Yours now." I felt her tremble again, and I knew I wouldn't last long. Where? After that, we lay together, her body pressed against my side, and her head rested on my shoulder. She leaned over and kissed my neck. You're a lot more aggressive than you were before. I turned my head to her and kissed those juicy red lips. Now I know what I want. I know what I'm willing to do to get it. A low, throaty chuckle sounded in her chest. I like it. Maybe not every time, but she kissed me on the neck again. I like that I am what you want. She was silent for a moment, thinking. What do you really want? I know we said we, but what does that mean? Do you just want to try again? With us? I lay low for a moment. I didn't want to scare her off, but I just told her that I know what I want, and I know what I'm willing to do to get it. No, I want commitment, Rachel. It's not just that we try again. She propped herself up on one elbow and looked at me with concern. What do you mean? I want you. I want us to be together. I love you. All this, that night together, our attempts to fight it, everything just now, this. I never wanted not to be with you. I never wanted us to break up at all. I turned on my side to look at her. What I want is this. I want to end my divorce. While this is going on, I want us to be sure that this is what you want, and not just a splash, not a look at the past with pink glasses. And if that's what you want, then the day after the divorce, I laughed. She smiled, a pearly white flash of beauty. What? You're mine, aren't you? She nodded sheepishly. Yes, it is. It wasn't easy. I kissed her. Then I'm going to make it official. I'll take this hand. I took her left hand in mine and I'll put a ring on it. I kissed her hand. And then after a while, when you're ready, I'll put another ring on her. I kissed her again. There were happy tears in her eyes. She nodded, barely able to speak, her voice a thin croak. Yes, then louder, assuredly. Yes, that's what I want. I want you to be mine. I want to be yours. I'm yours, and I want everyone to know about it. She pushed me onto my back and straddled me, laughing with delicious sinfulness. Her heavy breasts were so close to my mouth. And I'm going to make sure that you never, ever forget about it. Her labia slid back and forth over my shaft, bringing me back to life completely. Her eyes were wild and filled with emerald flames. Make sure that you never forget that you are mine too. We moved in together the following week. Too fast. Maybe. Rachel thought it was too late. This is something that should have happened many years ago, but did not happen. I won't let another day go by when I won't share my life with you. What could I say to that? We were very happy. I was worried that we had changed too much since college, or that we weren't as compatible as we thought we were. These fears were completely dispelled over the next 6 months. Our lives became one. Part of it was because we had the same friends, and they all thought we were idiots at the time. This was partly due to the fact that we were always interested in the same thing. We've always been good at it, and the years of separation have made us both more skilled and hungrier for each other. As the date of our last court hearing approached, Joan contacted me. She wanted to talk. I was thinking of ignoring her request. But then I decided that the last time we met, she didn't talk at all, and I owed her. We met on neutral ground in a park near her house. She looked tired, a little more exhausted. That wonderful, sweet sincerity was gone, and I played my part in it. To be honest, it hurt. She stood up as I approached. Hi, Paul. Thank you for coming. She hugged me, and I felt a little prick. Of course, I thought. Well, I thought you should be able to say what you need to say. We sat down on a bench, far enough apart from each other not to accidentally touch. She lowered her eyes. I wanted to apologize. I'm sorry about all this. You're right. And I wasn't being honest. I know. She suddenly raised her head. What? I realized it the day before. Well, before that, I looked at the clouds. Rules. Amendments. It doesn't matter. They were designed so that... I leaned forward, expecting to find some anger in my heart. But instead, I found only sadness. All the rules were designed to do one of two things. The first set was created so that it would be more difficult for me to pair up with someone. That's why there was a no one we know rule, because you knew that. I chuckled. You knew that I have a lot of previous contacts who could help me. Of course, it made sense not to invite people from our work or from our close circle of friends, but none of our acquaintances at all? It didn't happen. Besides, you signed the contract in advance. You've set up a date with someone in advance. I shook my head. You were stacking the deck. She nodded, then quietly confessed. That's right. I couldn't stand it. I didn't want to hurt you, but I knew it would be like this. But I am also… Me too. She stopped, crying softly. I knew I couldn't stand it either. To share you. This is too much for me. Her voice sounded completely empty, as if grief had eaten everything inside. It was too much for me. I sucked in a breath between my teeth. So the plan was to find a couple of dates, have an adventure, and then beg me to close the marriage again before I could do the same? Would you be having fun and it wouldn't matter because I already got mine in college? And you decided that I would just be grateful that things didn't get worse than they were? Yes. I appreciated her honesty, at least in that, and nodded. That's why I did what I did. Partly because he was angry, but partly because you needed to understand. To actually feel what you were planning to do to me. You needed to see as fully as possible what I would imagine in my head every evening at home waiting for you. How cruel it was to do this to me. I know. I know it now. I knew it would hurt you, but I thought… She hesitated. There was no good way to end this sentence without looking like a complete ass. That's why the other set was all about how to conduct a novel as cleanly as possible, to make you feel less guilty. Now anger began to rise. No, they were meant to make it less painful for you. She looked shocked, as if I didn't understand at all. Through clenched teeth, I said, No, to me, it would be. There was nothing you could have done to make it less painful for me. In general, doing it hurt, and guessing about what was going on would be even more painful. These rules were not for me. Like the first set, they were just for you. She opened her mouth to protest, but I pointed my finger at her and growled, That's right. You can keep lying to yourself if you want, but this is the only person you can lie to. The rules weren't made up to make me feel less hurt, but to make you feel less guilty. If you had come home clean and on time, and made sure that I wasn't called a doll maker, then you might have felt better about letting another man use you when you should have been at home with me instead, and that you pretty much made me a doll maker. Her frown said it all. It was a manifestation of guilt, but a new and fresh guilt. Deep down, she knew what these rules were really for. I just didn't want to admit it to myself. She was staring at the ground when tears welled up in her eyes, unable to meet my gaze. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have. She sobbed. I was so damn stupid, Paul. I didn't mean to hurt you. I didn't think it would really happen. She sucked in her breath with a hiss and lifted her face to look at me, as if it took all her strength away. I will always regret what I did. I was thinking about telling her about Rachel and me. I thought about it, but… No, I didn't want to rub her face in it. She'll find out about it soon enough through our mutual friends. But I also wasn't going to lie to her. I wasn't going to say that I was sorry for what she did. It could have made me a scoundrel because I actually loved her when we were married, and I would have happily spent the rest of my life with her. But what I have with Rachel now, and what I knew we would have in the future, there was no way I could honestly say that I regretted the end of my marriage. I got up. I loved you, Joan. A small part of me still loves you and will always love you. But you hurt me so much with all this that I never want to see you again. But I hope you have a good life. My wife was sobbing on a park bench in the bright afternoon sun while I was leaving. I kept my promise to Rachel. The very next day after the final divorce, I invited her to a romantic evening and proposed. Unfortunately, she wasn't very surprised. We got married 6 months later. We wrote our own vows. Yes, they were as subjective as any other set of vows, but that's what made them special. They were ours, and we have each other for the rest of our lives.